You are part of the largest psychological experiment in history. Billions of minds rewired daily by algorithms, without consent, without escape. And the test subject is you.
Where did Gen Z get all of these psychological problems from? You hear all the time about how we've become TikTok-brained. We have less attention spans, we can't focus, we don't sleep, everybody's hooked on porn. You go on Instagram, you get blasted with tons of videos and images of people your own age who look like they're doing better than you, and that makes you feel depressed. On top of this, there's tons of bleak narratives about our generation floating around online. We'll never be able to retire, we'll never be able to own our own homes. The job market is absolutely cooked, and the university degrees that we have invested our time and money in will turn out to be a complete waste. What an inspiring start to this video. Now all of this I bring up because it makes you wonder, why is it that Gen Z have all of these psychological problems, yet the other generations don't seem to have them? At least they don't seem to have them as bad as we do. Surely we can't all be insane. There must be something behind this that causes our generation to have all of these psychological problems. That is the question that I want to answer in this video. Now what's very, very interesting is that recent statistics show that there's been a dramatic personality shift among Gen Z people ever since 2014. And 2014, of course, is the year that many of us came online, that we became full-time social media users. Now, that's very interesting to me because that suggests that we might actually have a very interesting psychological advantage. And we need this advantage because Gen Z people are living at a time when there is a ton of problems pushing down on us. And I made this graphic that presents many of these problems. I don't doubt that if you're a Gen Z person, you are probably going through many of these right now. And the advantage that I want to present to you in this video is that if we can manage to learn to regulate our social media use, and in doing so, we can embrace boredom and quiet and creativity, we can reset our psychology from this mess. And in doing so, we can learn how to deal with the real world problems in a much more creative way. If you can teach yourself how to do this, then you stand to gain a massive psychological advantage. And I want to show you how to do this in this video today. Now, rest assured, I'm going to show you how to do all of this for free. There is no course on how to do this. I just think this is a very, very interesting opportunity, a very interesting idea. I want to use this video to suggest it to you. Because of course, I think Gen Z people want to be successful in this world. We don't want to constantly use social media to escape it. And I think there is a real psychological advantage to embracing this quiet factor. And I'm now going to get into how we're going to do just that. Let's begin by asking ourselves, why is the phone, why is social media so bad for us? Now, you're definitely aware of the usual explanations like the phone is designed to keep you hooked on dopamine, the social media apps are engineered to keep your brain wired on whatever chemical. Look, we all know this, yet it never actually changes our attitude to social media at all. We keep using it even though we know how bad it is. And what I'm going to suggest in this section is that the phone and social media together are actually doing something much more destructive. They are destroying your sense of identity as a young person. Your algorithms have dragged you around in multiple different directions ever since you were 10 years old. And I bring up this meme because I think it's quite instructive. Think about on a daily basis how many different identities are offered to you by your algorithm, whether these are political ideologies, philosophies for how you could live your life, religious beliefs, or even a cross-section of the many niche things that you happen to be interested in. Now, what I'm suggesting here is that because you're exposed to so many of these different things over the years, it's very difficult for you to form a stable sense of identity. It's like, what are you? Are you a porn addict? Are you a follower of Christ? Are you an aspiring businessman or an entrepreneur? Are you going to be the next big thing politically? Are you trans? Who knows what your true identity is? The problem for you is that you don't. Now, this constant noise and these mixed signals from your algorithm, these make it very, very difficult for you to actually settle on a coherent version of who you are. And if you're unsure of yourself, how could you possibly move forward in the real world with a sense of confidence? Then, if you lump in all of the other problems I spoke about, the tiredness, the fear of missing out, the lack of focus, you begin again to see the phone at the root of all of this. Now here's the good news, here's the advantage. Most of these psychological problems only exist because of the phone. If you haven't been diagnosed with any mental illness, then your brain actually works perfectly fine. You are not an addict. The phone addicts you, and you pick up all these psychological problems from it. They are not from within yourself. Now, some of you might think this argument is very simple or even a little bit silly. It would be like if an alcoholic said, well, if beer didn't exist, I wouldn't be an alcoholic. Now, that argument doesn't hold a lot of weight for me because, of course, there is no super beer that is specifically designed to hook you on it, that learns your drinking patterns so it can rope you back in to drink more and more. You also don't need to use beer as a tool to function in your day-to-day life. It's not like the phone. You need to use the phone as a tool to be effective in the world today. Also, you haven't grown up with beer in your hand from the age of 10. It hasn't been constantly affecting your decision-making since then. Unless you're Irish, like me. And I don't drink beer, so you can resist this stuff. Now, all jokes aside here, if you can accept that the psychological problems are in large part generated by your phone, then you have to honestly say that the phone is the thing that contains the problem, not you. You are not psychologically damaged. In fact, you can reset to not only become psychologically healthy, but psychologically strong. Okay, so what is the solution then? Seems quite obvious, right? You just put the phone down. Because of course, if you put limits on your phone use, then your psychology should reset to a normal baseline. Now, I don't really like this solution. It might surprise you to learn this because, okay, fine, you have a normal baseline psychology. You feel calm, maybe content. Then what? All of the problems that Gen Z face are still there. They're still gonna come for you. And I know this, actually. I know this from experience. This is not my first rodeo with trying an offline experiment. Back in January, I made a video saying that I was going to quit social media for the entire year. Now, this proved to be incredibly difficult and I stopped at the end of January. But I did learn something very, very interesting as a result of carrying out this experiment. What I discovered was something that I call the digital pacifier effect. Basically, I would get to the evenings, and instead of going to social media, I just kind of had to sit there with my own thoughts. And these thoughts would often be quite heavy. They would be related to the real world problems that I was going through. And what I did, rather than trying to deal with these problems, is I would reach for my phone and I would pick it up and I would do completely random, pointless actions like opening emails and pulling down and scrolling and trying to refresh them, even though I knew I wasn't expecting any kind of important email at all. Basically, I discovered that I was using the phone, I was using social media like a pacifier. Anytime a real heavy emotion would come up, I would pick up my phone and I would escape that. What I'm going to suggest is that how we become mentally strong as Gen Z people is we limit our phone use. We force ourselves to confront these heavy real world problems, whether it's getting over your ex, whether it's losing weight, whether it's trying to build a business and actually staying consistent at it. My idea is that the uncomfortable quietness and the uncomfortable boredom will force you to solve these problems yourself in a much more creative manner. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to leave you without actually showing you how to do this, how to tap into this more creative problem-solving part of yourself. It's okay, I'll hold your hand, it's going to be fine. What you need to know, first and foremost, is that everybody has this creative problem-solving capacity inside of them. But we've lost the ability to tap into it, and social media is largely the reason why. Because of social media, we really only rely on one half of our brains. Now, don't worry, that's not my schizo opinion. This is backed up by the most recent cutting-edge neuroscience. I am referring to Dr. Ian McGilchrist's book, Master and His Emissary. You can check that out if you like, but I'm going to break down the most relevant ideas in it for us here. Now what Dr. Ian suggests in his book is that if you took a knife to my head and cut it open like a Japanese samurai, you would see inside in my skull a brain that is split in two. There is a left brain and a right brain, and these do two completely different sets of tasks. If you think about it like parents in a household, they split tasks between each other so that the whole house can function effectively. The problem for us, if we overuse social media, is that our household is completely dysfunctional. It does not work because we are letting one of the sides of our brain do all of the work. And that is the left brain. So to understand why there's a problem with the left brain, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what it actually does. The left brain is the part of your brain that autistically does tasks, and it runs on dopamine. This is actually how you get hooked on the internet in the first place. The left brain, it sees a video, it watches it, it's like, yes, task complete, burst of dopamine, give me the next one. That's how you end up hooked on information. And there's a bit of a double problem here, because the voice that you can hear in your head when you're thinking, your inner monologue, is also in the left brain. This is where your language center is. So when you hear yourself think, or when you're trying to digest information, you're only listening to actually one half of your brain. It's quite nuts to think about, but it is true. This is proven. Now, this can be effective at some times. The left brain isn't a complete demon. You need it to function. You need it to get out of bed in the morning. You need it to put on your clothes. It's very useful for maintaining structures and routines, and the left brain gets very defensive about these routines as well. The issue is that when you are constantly on social media and you are getting dopamine bursts from watching YouTube videos and getting more and more information, the left brain starts to get very info hungry, and it can't actually decide on any plan of action. It's always looking for that one big idea that's going to finally make your life make sense. This is how you end up with analysis paralysis. So, because you've been constantly info dumping on your left brain, you don't give it a chance to breathe, and you're constantly using it to try and make sense of the world around you, you're neglecting your right brain entirely. Now, what does your right brain do? Well, this is very interesting. Your right brain is basically like a giant world builder inside in your head. It understands the context and the big picture of the world around you. So for example, the only reason that I actually know that I'm in my house right now and that there are no threats to me is because my right brain is there. It's active, it's on, it's in the background. It's silently scanning the horizon for new threats. It's constantly updating my idea of where I am in the world. Now, because your right brain has this big picture thinking and it's always looking for new threats, it has to then be more creative in order to deal with these threats. Now, what's relevant to you is that because the right brain is more creative and it comes up with more creative ideas, it often tries to play devil's advocate to the left brain. Now, you remember that the left brain is very stuck in its ideas and its routines and its patterns, and that can leave you being stuck mentally, like, oh, I can't figure out a way to deal with this problem. Well, as it happens, if you embrace quiet and you embrace boredom, your right brain will start to fire up. It has more of a capacity to generate new perspectives and think laterally. In effect, you have an inbuilt creative problem solver right there in your head. And when the right brain catches on to a good new idea that could potentially help you to deal with a new threat or a new problem, it will send it across to the left brain. So you can hear it in your chattering mind. Now, we in Gen Z have lost the ability to tap into this creative problem solving mechanism, because we're constantly outsourcing our problems to YouTube and ChatGPT. We go on there, we look for solutions, and we try those solutions rather than generating our own from within. And it's crazy to think that you have this world-building scanner inside in your head that's ready to provide specific solutions to your specific real-world problems, but you can't hear it because your left hemisphere wants to focus on porn and AI-generated business advice and TikTok edits of Ghislaine Maxwell and hour-long podcasts on the flat earth and so on and so on. Now there it is. That's the practical psychological advantage that we have as Gen Z people. If we can realize that by embracing quiet, embracing boredom, putting limits on our phone use, we can generate these creative solutions to our own specific problems, then that's going to give us a massive leg up in the real world. and it's not particularly difficult to get this creative problem-solving part of your brain to work. The thing is, you already largely know what you need to do in your life. You already know what problems you need to overcome. The issue is that this is very difficult, and it's getting harder. But I'm going to give you a very simple blueprint of how to get this part of your brain to work in your favor. First, to actually be able to focus on your problem-solving capacity, to give yourself a chance of success, you must limit information and distractions to the left brain. Do things in the real world that quieten it down. Make things with your hands. Practice sports. Take walks. Put the phone away. And over time, what you'll find happens is that a lot of the negative identities that are developed by phone use and related to it, like maybe porn addict, failed entrepreneur, and so on, all of these things should fade away. They should fade into the background. Now, something else that's definitely worth doing here is something that my friend did when he decided to limit not only his social media use, but also the things that he would buy and what films and TV shows he would watch last month. He asked himself one very, very important question that I really like. He asked himself, why must I have this? Now, I love this question because at the end of asking himself this, he found that very few of the channels he subscribed to or the podcasts he actually watched defined him at all. He didn't miss them, and he didn't go back and watch them at the end of the month. Except for the Tim Dillon show. He really loves Tim Dillon for some reason. Anyway, joking aside, this question is great because it gives you a sense of agency back over your world. You decide what things you let into it. You create a bit of separation. Instead of just giving in to your left hemisphere, your left brain every time and following a dopamine spiral, you take a step back and you say, actually, none of this stuff defines who I am, and I don't really need it. Effectively, this allows you to shape your world rather than have your world be shaped by your phone and by your algorithm. Then once you manage to quieten down the left brain, you must engage your right brain's capacity for creativity. You must start to do new and creative things. Learn languages. Go on new experiences. Go to a new place. Take up a musical instrument. Interpret your dreams. This is something that you could do because the right hemisphere often speaks to us through symbols and images and drawings and pictures. And people suggest that it might be trying to communicate to you through your dreams. It's a massive thing that you could do. But in general, the main thing to focus on is get out of constantly using language to explain things. Get out of your own head. You need to feed the right brain through creative action, and this will build your internal capacity to generate creative solutions to your problems. It'll make it stronger. Think about exercising a muscle. You're doing the same thing here. There it is. That's the quiet factor. That's our psychological advantage as Gen Z. And it is the lifestyle that I intend to follow as a means to success as a young person today. And you know what? In this strange modern time, we often find ourselves sniffing around online for identities that make us feel better, that help us cope with the mountain of problems that we face as a generation. We get dragged around from direction to direction by our algorithms in search of solutions that seemingly never come. And on the way, we lose track and we forget who we really are. And I made this video to ask the question, what if, on the contrary, the solutions that we needed were simply asleep within us this entire time? And in order to wake them up, all you had to do was remember who you really are. To realize that you have a deeply personal, deeply powerful inner story. A story that cannot be replicated, that cannot be found online, but could drive you to achieve great things in your life. Ironically, putting the phone down and tapping into the uncomfortable quiet, the boredom, and their friendly neighbor, creativity, seems to be the only way that you can keep writing that story. So if you'd be as kind at this part of the video to let us know your story in the comments below. Who are you really? And if you found this video inspirational, useful, beneficial, or you know somebody who could really do with seeing it and seeing the ideas within it, then please share it with them. I would really appreciate that for one. And as for me, as for my story, as for this little guy, I remember, he wanted to see the entire world. And today I'm 26. I haven't been outside of Europe yet. It's a good thing I'm not finished writing the story. At least not yet.
I've been a wild rover for many a year. I've spent all my money on whiskey and beer, but now I'm returning with